At the sight of the pitch-black claw, a faint gleam flashed through Hanli's eyes, and even Weeping Soul straightened slightly, her interest unmistakable. This infernal ghost claw was one of the two immortal treasures she had been yearning for. The auctioneer flicked an incantation seal into the claw, and at once, a whirlwind of black runes burst forth. A savage yin wind roared outward, carrying bone-freezing chill. Though layers of restrictions guarded the auction platform, the oppressive yin power still swept through the hall, causing weaker cultivators to shudder uncontrollably. With another change of seals, the black claw swelled until it was the size of a house, then slammed down upon a towering black rock beside the platform. According to the Sun Moon Pavilion's rules, all offensive immortal treasures had to be demonstrated publicly, and this rock, famed for its resilience, served as the test subject. It had already endured many trials and was riddled with scars, yet remained whole. A dull thud echoed. The claw struck once, and the massive rock instantly shattered into more than 10 pieces. Green smoke curled from the fractured surfaces, the marks of terrifying corrosion. Gasps rippled through the crowd, while Weeping Soul's eyes shone with excitement. Hanli, however, frowned slightly. Such destructive power made the infernal ghost claw the most fearsome treasure shown so far, and its final price would surely be staggering. Though 50 million immortal origin stones lay at his disposal, winning it would leave him painfully short-handed for the rest of the auction. The auctioneer spoke calmly, admitting he could wield less than a tenth of the claw's might, but in the hands of a true yin ghost cultivator, its power would be beyond measure. The bidding opened at 8 million, with 500,000 increments. Calls rang out in rapid succession, the price climbing as the crowd was swept up by the display. Hanli remained silent, resolved to strike only at the end. Soon, the bidding reached 15 million, and most competitors withdrew. 16 million. Hanli finally spoke. A hoarse voice from a nearby VIP booth answered with 16.5 million. Hanli's gaze pierced toward it with his infernal devilish eyes, whose power had grown after he opened countless acupoints of the Asura blood gate. Though most booths were sealed, his vision slipped through. Within sat a gray-robed elder at the early great encompassment stage, gripping a bone-white cane. His agitation was clear. Weeping Soul quietly noted that the man was near his limit. Hanli raised the bid to 18 million. The elder sighed deeply and conceded, plunging the hall into silence. The price had already surpassed the treasure's perceived value. Just as the auctioneer prepared to conclude, a cold voice emerged from another booth. 19 million. Hanli and Weeping Soul both turned their attention there. 6 black-robed figures sat within, faces hidden beneath rippling black light that even Hanli's eyes could not penetrate. When Hanli probed further, one figure stirred and released a red mist, sealing the booth completely. 20 million, Hanli declared, signaling Weeping Soul to probe their souls. She tried, then shook her head in frustration. The bidder was adept in soul-related laws and perfectly concealed. 22 million, the cold voice snapped. Weeping Soul urged retreat, though reluctance filled her tone. Hanli reassured her and pressed on. 25 million! Murmurs surged through the hall. After a pause, the reply came, 27 million! 30 million! Hanli countered without hesitation, stunning the audience. The price was absurd, yet he had promised Weeping Soul and knew the claw suited her perfectly. A tall figure in the opposing booth cast one last chilling glance before falling silent. The auctioneer hastily finalized the sale. Relief washed through Hanli, tempered by concern. Only 20 million immortal origin stones remained, and Weeping Soul still desired another treasure of equal worth, not to mention materials needed for the Essence Firechild. Lanmei soon delivered the infernal ghost claw. Hanli paid without delay, and Weeping Soul happily drew the treasure into herself for refinement. Hanli then asked about selling items of his own. At his gesture, a dozen blue crystals appeared, each crackling with radiant lightning. The violent fluctuations made Lanmei tremble until Hanli raised a golden barrier. After examining them, Lanmei gasped. They were lightning shock stones, each worth over 1 million. Unable to handle such a deal alone, she hurried off to summon an elder. Left waiting, Hanli cast a thoughtful glance toward the mysterious booth once more. The six figures' heavy concealment suggested formidable origins. 9 Origins Temple, 100 Creations Mountain, Golden Origin Immortal Palace. A sudden unease stirred in his heart. Could they be connected to him? What is it, Master? You seem somewhat uneasy, Weeping Soul asked softly. Weeping Soul, keep watch on the 6 people in that booth. Find out who they are and why they're here if you can. Han Li instructed through voice transmission. Though unclear about the reason, Weeping Soul complied without hesitation. At that moment, a woman in a green Taoist robe entered the booth together with Lan Mei. She was a great encompassment cultivator with a youthful appearance, rosy as a lotus bloom, and a faint floral scent clung to her body, revealing her as a plant spirit rather than a human. Her eyes gleamed upon seeing the lightning shock stones, and she turned to Han Li with a smile. Greetings, fellow Taoist Shi. I am an administrative elder of the Sun Moon Pavilion. You may call me Lotus Maiden. The pleasure is mine. I wonder if the Sun Moon Pavilion can afford these lightning shock stones? Hanli asked calmly. Certainly. Even tens of thousands would not be an issue for us, Lotus Maiden replied confidently. In that case, please appraise them, Hanli said. After a brief inspection, Lotus Maiden nodded. Each stone is of excellent quality. I can offer 1.5 million Immortal Origin stones per piece. 13 stones come to 19.5 million. Let's make it 20 million. How does that sound? Hanley had expected far less, so he readily agreed. That will do. I also have other materials to sell. With a sweep of his sleeve, he produced a jumble of items he had failed to sell for years. Lotus Maiden examined them briefly. A mixed assortment, though there are some usable items. I'll take everything for 4 million Immortal Origin stones. Hanli nodded without bargaining. Selling them all at once saved effort, even if it meant slightly less profit. In total, he gained 24 million Immortal Origin stones, lifting his spirits considerably. Lotus Maiden departed promptly with Lan Mei. Weeping Soul then turned back, clearly ready to report. How did it go? Hanli asked. I couldn't learn much from their conversation, but I identified one of them, Weeping Soul replied. Who? Lan Yan, the woman we met earlier at the Tai Sui Immortal Manor. Are you certain? Hanli asked in surprise. Absolutely, I confirmed it through her soul fluctuations. Hanli trusted her senses completely. Lan Yan was from the Nine Origins Temple, so her companions were likely the same. What were they plotting here? Keep watching them. Inform me if anything unusual happens, Hanli instructed before refocusing on the auction. Before long, an item he had been waiting for appeared. The beast core of a peak high zenith 3-legged golden crow. Though precious, it drew little attention, and Hanli secured it for 5 million Immortal Origin stones. He placed it into the Flower Branch domain, where the Essence Fire Child gleefully devoured it in raven form. The next item emerged, a black jade box sealed with talismans, yet leaking chilling ghostly power. Both Hanli and Weeping Soul straightened. The seal was lifted, revealing a short black flute made from a leg bone, a skull affixed at one end. A shrill wail burst forth, ghostly power assaulting the soul and unsettling the crowd. A barrier quickly rose to contain it. This is the soul-scattering ghost flute, the auctioneer announced, explaining its origins and that it had once been a 4th-tier immortal treasure before being damaged. Starting price, 10 million. Hanli's heart sank. No wonder it felt so formidable. It would likely cost far more than the infernal ghost claw. Bidding surged rapidly to 20 million. 25 million. Hanli called out, hoping to intimidate others. Silence fell, until the same rival from before countered. 28 million. Then another voice joined in. 30 million. Hanli pressed on. 33 million. The blue-robed youth countered once more, then fell silent as the bidding escalated. 40 million, Hanli declared, stirring the entire hall. All eyes turned toward him, recalling his earlier extravagant purchase. Hanli ignored them, watching Lan Yan's booth closely. Just as he thought it was over, the cold voice rang out again. 45 million. Hanli sighed with a rueful smile. Seems we won't be getting that flute. Weeping Soul, however, remained silent, eyes closed. Moments later, the flute was sold. Then Weeping Soul opened her eyes, brimming with excitement. Master, I obtained something important. What is it? She sent an image directly into his mind. Inside the other booth, figures spoke in hushed tones. Your wealth is truly astonishing, Senior Jin, one said obsequiously. This sum is nothing to me, the tall, thin man replied smugly. We've lingered too long. If that gold-devouring immortal escapes again, none of us will escape blame, a petite, muffled female voice interjected. The others responded fearfully. The vision faded. Hanli narrowed his eyes. 9 Origins Temple cultivators, hunting a gold-devouring immortal, had Jintong truly slipped from their grasp? Master, do you think the gold-devouring immortal they mentioned could be Jintong? Weeping Soul asked softly. What? Did I just hear boss's name? Xiaobai shouted at once from within the flower branch domain. It's not impossible, Hanli replied after some thought. Jintong is clever enough that she may have escaped the 9 Origins Temple. Yet if Jintong were truly nearby, why could he not sense her at all through their spiritual connection? A thought soon struck him. Now that Jintong had reached the great encompassment stage, her soul might have grown powerful enough to erase the spiritual mark he had once planted. Master, they're leaving, Weeping Soul suddenly warned. Hanli looked over to see 6 figures exiting their booth. The auction was not even halfway finished, with many treasures yet to appear. But this matter clearly took precedence. Let's follow them, Hanli said, rising to his feet. Only after the 6 had gone some distance did Hanli and Weeping Soul quietly depart and trail them from afar. Once outside the Sun Moon Pavilion, the 6 figures flew off, while Hanli's group kept their distance. At Xiaobai's urging, Hanli released him from the Flower Branch domain. Before long, the 6 arrived at the outskirts of Gilded City and halted. This remote area was far from the city's core. Inhabited mostly by mortals and low-tier cultivators, one cloaked figure stepped forward and produced a blue crystal orb filled with a swirling vortex of azure light. A faint streak of gold flashed within it. He's here, the figure declared. It was Lanyan's voice. We finally found him, the petite figure exclaimed, flicking her sleeve to scatter silver array flags into the surrounding space. The air trembled, and a transparent hemispherical barrier appeared, covered in countless intricate silver patterns. It vanished in an instant, drawing no attention. There's no escape for the gold-devouring immortal now, another figure chuckled. Enough talk, the petite figure snapped, vanishing into rippling space. Her companions followed, disappearing one after another. Only then did Hanli, Weeping Soul, and Xiaobai arrive. An azure veil cloaked them, fully concealing their auras. Hanli extended a finger, sending out a thin beam of golden light. Silver runes immediately emerged, blocking it. After a brief stalemate, both forces dissipated. This spatial restriction is formidable, Hanli said with a frown. I can break it, but not without alerting them. Leave that to me, Xiaobai grinned. Get in my stomach for now. He assumed his Pixiu form and swallowed Hanli and Weeping Soul whole, then chanted softly as white ripples spread over his body. His form blurred, merging into space as a pale shadow drifting forward. White runes appeared to bar his way, yet he passed through them effortlessly. On the other side, Xiaobai reformed and released Hanli and Weeping Soul. Hanli stared in surprise. I didn't know you could bypass spatial restrictions. Our ink-eyed Pixiu bloodline carries innate spatial power, Xiaobai said smugly. Returning to human form, Hanli nodded, then looked ahead, only to find the 6 figures gone. They're concealed over there, Weeping Soul said, pointing. Xiaobai's heaven-moving talisman is keeping us hidden, but we can't get too close. Hanli activated his infernal devilish eyes and spotted the 6 figures gathered around a secluded courtyard. Let's move, he said. With their auras suppressed and souls concealed, they approached carefully. Before they could draw near, a thunderous boom erupted. Golden light exploded outward, forming a raging vortex that obliterated the courtyard. Hanli's group halted and took cover behind a large tree. The 6 cloaked figures flew out, forming an encirclement. As the golden radiance spread, Hanli sensed a familiar aura. It's him. Not Jintong, he murmured. Who? Xiaobai asked. The smoke cleared, revealing a young man in golden robes, Kulin, the gold-devouring immortal at the great encompassment stage. You're persistent, I'll give you that, Kulin sighed. There's no need for force, a black-robed woman said calmly. We're only here to invite you to the Bodhi banquet. Come with us to the Heavenly Court. Weeping Soul frowned. Heavenly Court? I thought they were from the 9 Origins Temple. Hanli was equally puzzled. You think I'd trust the Heavenly Court again? Kulin scoffed. That's how I ended up trapped in the Aeon Pagoda. There must have been a misunderstanding, the woman replied flatly. Spare me. Leave, all of you, Kulin said coldly. So be it, the woman said, sweeping her sleeve. Crimson mist poured forth as countless red specks appeared. Fire ants burst from the ground, turning everything to molten lava. It's her, Hanli exclaimed. An old flame of yours? Xiaobai teased. Enough nonsense, Hanli snapped, flicking Xiaobai's forehead. That's Qi Meng, great encompassment cultivator of fire laws. Do not underestimate her. The fire ants surrounded the area but stopped short of Kulin, whether by command or fear of his gold-devouring beetles. Hurry and finish this? We've wasted enough time, an elderly-voiced man barked. All except Lan Yan attacked. The tall man struck first, unleashing several ghostly monarchs that lunged forward. So that's the soul law cultivator, Weeping Soul said smugly. Similar powers to mine, but far inferior. Kulin stepped forward, his footfall like a collapsing mountain. Golden light erupted, scattering the fire ants. He punched, golden flames shredding the ghostly monarchs amid shrill wails. At once, a sea of blazing fire crashed down from above, and a colossal golden sword descended from the heavens, cleaving the flames as it struck toward Kulin. The giant sword slammed into Kulin's shoulder, blood splashing as the force drove him down onto one knee. A muffled groan escaped his lips, yet he stubbornly straightened his back beneath the crushing weight, golden light already knitting flesh and bone as the wound began to heal. The short black-robed man wielding the blade snorted coldly at the sight and pressed down even harder. Kulin's body trembled, but he managed to remain standing this time, lifting his head with a sneer. Is that all you've got? I've long heard that gold-devouring immortals possess indestructible bodies, but you look rather ordinary to me, Qi Meng mocked. She flicked her sleeve, and swarms of fire ants surged over Kulin's body, scorching his skin and leaving blackened trails in their wake. Golden ripples burst forth from Kulin's body, violently shaking off the ants. The massive sword on his shoulder quivered before being blasted away. Stamping his foot, Kulin shot skyward like an arrow, attempting to break free from the encirclement. Before he could escape, the heavens darkened. Black mist churned, forming a colossal ghost that descended from the clouds and swallowed him whole. The moment Kulin entered its gaping maw, dizziness assaulted him. Semi-transparent gray chains converged from all directions, passing straight through his body as icy mist poured in, freezing his immortal spiritual power as if locked in solid ice. Attacks from the other black-robed figures rained down immediately after. Though caught off guard, Kulin endured the onslaught without collapsing. His body truly lives up to the rumors, the tall black-robed man remarked coldly. But once his spiritual sense is destroyed, he'll be nothing but an empty shell. With that, he raised a black flute to his lips. A sudden sense of danger surged through Hanli's heart. The flute sounded, runes blazing as strange sound waves rippled outward. Kulin's composed expression twisted in agony as the waves struck him. It felt as though an invisible saw had appeared within his consciousness, hacking violently at his soul. Even among great encompassment cultivators, Kulin's soul was formidable, yet before the flute it seemed alarmingly fragile. As the pitch rose higher, the saw transformed into countless sharp spikes drilling into his soul, forcing an anguished howl from his throat. Hanli and the others were also affected. Weeping Soul, sharing similar law powers with the flutist, resisted best, while Hanli endured through sheer spiritual strength. Xiaobai, newly inheriting the ink-eyed pixie's power, trembled visibly despite holding back his cries. Concern flashed across Weeping Soul's face. A vertical eye opened on her forehead, releasing twin red beams that struck Hanli and Xiaobai, easing their suffering. At that moment, Qimeng's voice rang out sharply. Had I known you'd deliver yourself to me so willingly, I wouldn't have searched so hard, Hanli. She was already hovering above them. With their concealment exposed, Hanli emerged alongside Xiaobai and Weeping Soul, rising into the air within Weeping Soul's dark red spirit domain. Hanli smiled calmly. Apologies for the wait, Celestial Maiden Qimeng. Fellow Taoist Han? Lanyan cried out in surprise from afar. Qimeng studied Hanli, surprise flickering in her eyes at his aura. So little time had passed, yet he had already reached the great encompassment stage. She quickly scoffed, regaining her composure. So what if you've broken through? You haven't even severed a single corpse soul. I won't let you escape again. Beyond early great encompassment lay the perilous severance of corpse souls, by each granting terrifying power. Confident with her allies at hand, Chimeng waved her sleeve, conjuring a massive spherical barrier that expanded hundreds of kilometers. Heat surged as fiery waterfalls crashed from the sky, turning land into molten lakes and scorching the very origin chi from the air. Xiaobai swallowed dryly. She's troublesome. She held back last time, Hanli replied grimly. Elder Shitang, Elder John Chu, deal with that gold-devouring immortal, Chimeng commanded. The rest, capture Han Li. As the tall man and the golden sword wielder acknowledged, Han Li instructed calmly, Weeping Soul, go help Kulin. You think you can move freely in my spirit domain? Chimeng snapped. A towering fiery giant rose from the lava, blocking Weeping Soul's path. With a cold snort, Weeping Soul unleashed her infernal ghost claw, shredding the giant into molten fragments. More fiery giants surged forth, but Hanli expanded his golden spirit domain, slowing them to a crawl. Weeping Soul carved through them effortlessly and pressed onward. A molten worm burst from a lava fall, lunging for her head. Though she severed it instantly, its body reformed in crimson light and attacked again. Ignore it. Keep going, Hanli's voice rang out. Just as the worm was about to devour her, a golden river surged upward, flooding its mouth and freezing it solid in mist. Riding the wave, Weeping Soul burst through and arrived beside Kulin, whose eyes flickered with complex emotions at Hanli's presence. Elsewhere, Elder Shitang raised his flute once more, condensing its sound waves into a lethal stream aimed solely at Weeping Soul. She smiled faintly, anticipation glinting in her eyes as she wondered how powerful she would become after devouring him. For reasons he couldn't explain, a deep chill crept down Elder Shitang's spine. A flicker of astonishment crossed Chimeng's eyes when she saw the golden river flowing below. So, you've already condensed a creation tier spirit domain. And what of it? It's nothing more than a lone river, lacking even pure water law. What do you think you can accomplish with this? She laughed derisively, but her mockery froze almost at once. Violent fluctuations of time law suddenly rippled through the air. Within Hanli's spirit domain, undulating mountains, an azure forest, a radiant golden moon, and countless fiery stars emerged one after another, forming a complete and majestic scene. This can't be, Chimeng cried out in disbelief. How could someone at the early Great Encompassment stage manifest such a complete creation tier spirit domain? She knew better than anyone how arduous spirit domain manifestation was. It demanded immeasurable time, resources, and fortune. Even most creation tier domains could only manifest a single scene or spirit, just like her own lava waterfalls and flame giants. To see such a comprehensive domain was almost unheard of. Forced to reevaluate Hanli, Chimeng turned sharply and ordered, Lanyan, help me. Lanyan hesitated, her body swaying slightly. Don't forget what you asked of me? Chimeng snapped coldly. Resignation flashed through Lanyan's eyes as she reluctantly flew to Chimeng's side. At that moment, Xiaobai was briefly blinded by a flash of white light. In the next instant, Chimeng appeared beside him at terrifying speed, seemingly unaffected by Hanli's spirit domain, and erected a semi-transparent barrier around herself, Hanli, and Xiaobai. Delight flashed across her face as 9 crimson, translucent dragons on the barrier came alive, spewing torrents of flame toward Hanli. A miserable howl rang out. Chimeng's expression changed drastically as she hurriedly restrained the 9-dragon divine fire dome, only to find the 2 black-robed figures with her trapped inside it. Their robes were burned away, their bodies badly scorched. What happened? Chimeng exclaimed in shock. You really thought I'd fall for that trick again? Hanli's mocking voice echoed out. He appeared before Chimeng in a blink and slashed with his azure bamboo cloud swarm sword. She barely had time to raise an arm before being sent flying, numbness and searing pain surging through her body as she tumbled tens of thousands of feet before regaining balance. Before she could recover, fiery meteors the size of millstones rained down. She tried to evade, only to find azure vines coiling around her ankles, locking her in place. Her movements slowed drastically, leaving her no time to form seals. In desperation, she cried out as her aura erupted, forming a blazing ring of flames, her nascent flame. It resonated with her fiery spirit domain, drawing the lava waterfalls together to clash against the falling meteors. The vines were forced back, and she shot upward, distancing herself from the azure forest. Only then did realization strike her. Hanli's time spirit domain had already brushed the oneness tier. Her heart sank. What are you waiting for? Release your spirit domains and suppress his, she shouted as she withdrew the 9-dragon divine fire dome. The two black-robed figures exchanged a glance and unleashed their domains together. Black light spread from their bodies, fusing into a barrier that overlapped with both spirit domains. The land within shuddered violently and sank several feet, dragging Hanli and Xiaobai down with it. Elsewhere, Weeping Soul battled Elder Shi Tang, who now wore a ghastly bone mask. As he played the soul-scattering ghost flute, black mist rose from the cracked earth, forming a thorn-filled city adorned with hanging human heads. The ancient word Fengdu glowed upon it, radiating overwhelming baleful aura. Standing atop the city, Shitang's flute grew ever more unbearable. The gates of Fengdu creaked open, releasing dense black mist and legions of ferocious ghosts that surged toward Weeping Soul. Dark clouds blanketed the sky as frost spread across the ground. Far from frightened, Weeping Soul licked her lips and charged into the ghostly horde, her infernal ghost claw shredding enemies with every swing. As she grew more adept, her power surged, and the dissipating ghostly energy was drawn into her body to strengthen her further. Nearby, Kulin clashed with Elder Jianqiu. Jianqiu slashed for Kulin's neck, only for Kulin to dip his head and bite down on the golden immortal sword. A sharp crack rang out as the blade shattered, a large chunk torn away. How dare you! Jianqiu roared in fury. Kulin retreated calmly, chewing the fragment, then glanced toward Hanli with complicated emotions. He had never imagined meeting him again under such circumstances. The joint domain of the black-robed figures intensified gravity, weakening Hanli's spirit domain and slowing him. Regaining her composure, Qi Meng acted again, merging her 8 lava waterfalls into a massive vortex that surged toward Hanli, radiating searing heat and powerful suction. Hanli remained calm, sweeping his sleeve as the mountain range in his domain rose and flew to his side, trailing rippling time law fluctuations that held the fiery vortex at bay. The two black-robed figures beneath the mountains felt their senses slow. By the time clarity returned, the mountains had descended. Though insubstantial, the eastern vicissitudes' divine tree upon them was not. Its roots shot out, binding the two figures, piercing their bodies and silencing their screams as their joint domain collapsed. Qi Meng watched grimly. Seeing Jianqiu and Shitang struggling as well, rage flared in her eyes. I'll admit you forced me this far, but this ends now. She raised both hands, and the world's origin around her burned away, forming a vacuum. Her crimson hair billowed upward as golden flames burst from her eyes, making her resemble an ancient fire deity. With a casual wave, she sent a petal-shaped golden flame toward Hanli. Hanli answered by channeling his heavenly, baleful purgatory arts and throwing a massive fist projection. A thunderous boom erupted as the flame pierced through it unhindered. Hanli frowned slightly and slashed with his sword, releasing a bolt of golden lightning that shattered the petal into countless sparks. Through the blazing light, he saw an enormous golden flower bloom behind Qi Meng. Its radiant petals fanned out like a peacock's tail.